Welcome back to Where's My Diagnosis? In this explosive episode, Carrie reveals how everything changed after the realisation the ovary was diseased before the appendix. This led Carrie to question everything, including who she can trust and why 20 years of medical records just don't add up.
So, Carrie, what did you see in the 2017 MRI that made everything fall into place?
I found a large right adnexal mass, so the ovary and fallopian tube area was bright or hyperdense, as they call it on an MRI, and it wasn't matching the left. So remember I was talking about symmetry, and when you see asymmetry, that's when you start to worry. So it was solid, clearly not a benign cyst, and I was never told about it. And this was just it was an MRI that I had. All the scans and reports that I was getting my hands on that had to do with the last 3 years of my life, I just trusted that when they said there was no evidence of disease, well, okay, there's no evidence of disease. And so I didn't think to look at a scan because, I mean, you don't know what you're looking at. And so I just left it to the experts. And then when I realized that the scans don't match them, I said when I was running them through ChatGPT, and then I was looking at hundreds of other scans and they looked just like my scans, and then I'd look at benign things and malignant things, and mine were looking like malignant things, and they had all the features of malignant. So that's what made me go back. And then I started realizing that the scan reports were flipping the right side to the left side, just like they did with the PET scan in 2022 when they said it was my left ovary that lit up. But then I got my hands on the PET scan that I was saying before, pretty easy to read. And both the MIP, which shows what organ is lighting up, and then the metabolic glowing part of the scan, where the sugar is what, the cancer absorbs that faster, and that's what glows. My scan lit up like a Christmas tree. So, but it was the right side, but the report said left.
Mm.
So this is going back to, this is all in the right-hand side. They've operated on the left-hand side and just stitched you back up and gone, job done.
Well, they operated on the right-hand side and said it was the appendix, but they didn't address the mass in the ovary. So, and then like back in January 2022, before I even had the appendix out, it said the right fallopian tube and the right ovary. And just when I went back and looked at other scans for malignancy, ovarian malignancy showed shadowing, all the things I was telling you guys about, just everything is not adding up to when they said it was an abscess. It shouldn't have been 8 centimeters.
Mm.
That's a warning sign, just that alone. And then everything else, like with the vascularity, the blues and reds in the scan, that shouldn't, just with a typical, pus or blood, sorry, gross. But yeah, so that made me question everything, and that took me back 20 years.
Mm. So just to make sure that I and anybody else who's not medically trained is able to understand this. So things aren't adding up. So you get more of your medical records. You look at this 2017 MRI. You do the study as you've just described it, and that's when you identify that there's something coming up on this MRI. You start to notice that the way in which the report is written, again, is just not adding up. And then presumably you go to look at other reports from there. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back to 2005. So obviously that's, what is that? You were 29.
I was 29,
at that stage. Yeah.
Just had a baby.
And this is when night sweats began.
Mm-hmm.
You had sought advice around that, is that right? There was no follow-up. Why do you believe this was the beginning of things?
Because night sweats are a systemic red flag for malignancy. And then what happened following that, just when I go back, using hindsight, which is always a gift, it was 2006 where my first breast irregularities surfaced. So, and again, they weren't reporting on the hypoechoic lesions, and they weren't reporting on the vascularity. And I was like, why aren't they reporting on that? So everything I saw on the scan wasn't matching the report. And so 2005, when I had the night sweats, and I had initially just told my psychiatrist, and she said, "Oh, Carrie, it's just probably from your nightmares. Don't worry about it." And I was like, "But I've had nightmares on and off my whole life. I've never had terrible drenching night sweats." So when my mom came down, I was still having the night sweats, and she said, "This isn't normal." And she convinced me to go to the doctor and have a scan. They did a heart echo, and I knew they did something, but I couldn't remember what it was. It wasn't until I went back a couple months ago to get everything, and it was a heart echo, and it just said that there was no irregularities and no signs of lung disease, but it didn't say anything about my night sweats. It was just a really scant report. And I just went, okay, I want to get my hands on that actual scan. And the scan doesn't exist. I was like, well, that's weird. And so, yeah, from there, I just thought, okay, that is probably the beginning of something that is sus.
Yeah.
Indeed. So you've said that IHC staining was never done, not in the breast biopsies you had done back in 2012, nor in the 2013 gastroscopy, and not on the appendix in 2022. Is that, well, I was just going to postulate, is that because of money, or is it, I don't know what? Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't even know IHC was a thing. So, but it was never performed on any key specimens, like you said, 2012, 2013, 2015, or 2022. Breast biopsy showed fragmented mucinous tissue, but no stains were applied. And fragmented mucinous tissue is sign of malignancy, or it's like a sign of at least a mucinous tumor. 2013 gastroscopy and colonoscopy records vanished when I went back, and I know where I had them performed, and the hospital said they have no record of my having the gastroscopy, the colonoscopy, or 2 years later a breast surgery, but they have my 2007 knee surgery. I think I talked about that before.
And I'm obviously naive. I don't know because I don't work in that sector, but I would have thought the accuracy of health records would be a pretty big deal.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
if you had a procedure or test done, surely that's a very serious thing for labs and hospitals and doctors to
not get things right.
keep in order.
For
Because
sure.
what I find really odd about this part of your story, Carrie, is just how often this stuff happens. So you could
time.
forgive a error,
One off, sure.
you know, oops, someone deleted the file or who knows what.
Yeah.
But for there to be so many gaps in your records, I think is just really strange.
Well, I even let a couple of things slide myself. So when they said that they removed my tubes, remember that very first one when they said they took my tubes out, it's written on my, like the discharge summary. I was like, they didn't take my tubes. They just opened me up, saw that it was the appendix, and closed me up. So why does it say that they took my tubes? And I let that go. I just thought, oh, must be some sort of error. I didn't question it. And then I started seeing more and more of this happening. And then when I found out that on my online patient portal, history at Royal Melbourne says that they gave me a bag and a right hemicolectomy, I'm like, oh no, wow.
You don't.
They're saying they've removed things that they haven't removed.
And
that they've
added a bag. I'd notice.
You'd think you'd notice.
I would notice. We talked about that. Yeah.
So then obviously the 2022 appendix pathology.
Right. And then, like I was saying before, that it had all these high-grade features like papillary structures, pseudostratified nuclei, and yet no staining was done. And so the ovary was diseased as reported in the week previous scan and underreported, but it was still said to have been diseased. And the appendix is diseased, so you need IHC to then determine which is the organ of primary origin. They just said the appendix. What did they guess?
And so, yeah, no staining's done because they just keep running around wondering what things are without digging any deeper.
Well, I think they're conveniently avoiding identifying that it was likely metastatic breast cancer this whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go to Knox Private then. In terms of the having no records of the 2013 scope or your 2015 breast surgery, what's the same laboratory is involved in this moment? What's the significance of that in your mind based on all of the dots you're starting to join? Why are they significant?
Well, I saw that lab came up. It's a lab in Gardenvale, so it's nowhere near Knox Private, and it was nowhere near East Melbourne where I had the gynecological surgery, and the same laboratory, my stuff was sent to the same lab. And again, they don't specialize in gynecological sampling, so they didn't have the right staining, like any staining to conduct a proper diagnosis. And so that same lab received terrible Google reviews when I looked, and people were saying that it's a dodgy lab. So why would they send somebody with a rare mucinous cancer? They should have sent me to Peter Mac that has or kept me at East Melbourne. So I'm not sure why they would put it to a dodgy lab that doesn't have the resources or the staining or the specialty to conduct a proper, thorough examination.
Yeah, that's going to be a big murky bucket of mud to try and wade through to figure out the real reasons behind all of that, isn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean...
But fundamentally what you were saying to us is that there were some pretty critical stains in your view. So pick me up here if I get any of these wrong. So no IHC or mucus stains like PAS, MUC2 or
CDX2.
CDX2. You say it, you've practiced.
Oh, I just read it so many times, and I've been looking for it again and again, over and over. And then when I remembered that I had that 2015 biopsy of the breast lesion that was fragmented, I was like, okay, well, where's the IHC and staining so that they would do the proper PAS, meaning that detects mucin. So it will, and there's other ones that they'll stain it, and if it's mucinous, it'll come up blue, and that's how they know. So I don't understand how the whole thing works. I just know that I've never had it done, and it's a critical component in diagnostics. So,
yeah, bizarre. It's like you want a breakdown of why wasn't this done? Is this just me, or is this very rarely ever done? Does it cost so much money that it's hardly ever done, and it's only reserved for who knows?
It's
surely it can't be that expensive.
Well, it's a critical component, so I mean it's a serious oversight that continues to happen.
Yeah.
And hey, if it's a money issue, at least give it the option.
Well, yeah,
I'll happily pay for my own.
Yeah.
I'll go on the black. I'm ready to go on the dark web and look for PAS staining and just cut open my thigh.
Why don't we?
Oh, look, it's blue.
Why don't we
big surprise.
Start with a GoFundMe or something? It's probably a little less dramatic if it's cash they need.
Yeah.
So help us to understand a little bit more about that process that was supposed to have happened. Sorry, so the board review. What's that about?
So when you have a complex case like certain cancers, where I guess it's a multidisciplinary approach. So because it's a gastrointestinal cancer, like it has like your whole entire peritoneal cavity, all of your organs are involved. So you need your liver specialist, you need your gynecologist, you need the bladder, whatever that's called, urologist. Yeah, you need urologists and all of that. So they all meet and they work out how best to look after the patient. And that's why IHC is important, because determines if there's any, the aggressive nature of the cancer, the subtype, and oh my God, sorry.
Any
Cut all
other
this
areas
out.
that would be impacted?
If there's mutations, so you can have a low-grade cancer, but if it mutates, then it can have high-grade behaviors, high-grade features.
So there's like a board of experts that are coming together.
Yes, and they have apparently re-pathologized, if that's a word, my tumor, and I assume using the correct staining.
But there's no evidence of it.
There's no evidence of it. And just the word of my oncologist at the time, the little cancer guy, so it became an even littler cancer. So my stage 4 was suddenly a stage 3. And so that basically bumped my care right out of the system. That's what happened.
So was that a phone call or did he just email your GP? Or,
He just emailed her.
right. Yeah.
And then she emailed me, oh, by the way, don't worry about it. It's been downgraded to a stage 3.
By the way,
That's
don't
right.
worry about it.
Yeah.
But can we all just take a moment to remember that your symptoms persist?
Yes.
So while everyone's going, oh, all good, nothing going on here,
It's all in my head.
it's all in your head.
I'm sweating through, like I was saying last time, just shocking. I'm
3
getting sick.
towels a night.
Yeah, 3-4 towels a night.
Yeah.
I barely sleep. And the pain, all the issues I've had, that led me to hospital, and I know we'll get into that. It continues. It just continues. I'm getting sicker and sicker, and and again, more scans. So the mass that's popped up on my leg and getting bigger, it was said to be a simple lipoma. Right. Okay. Simple lipoma. Sure.
Yeah.
Still growing, and it's got solid components in it, and it's lobulated. That word again.
You've got a whole new dictionary.
I
in
have a
your
whole
life.
new dictionary.
It's bizarre. Okay, so that tumour board review, you don't see any evidence of it having happened. I recall through our conversations that there was another case where,
It never happened twice.
yeah, so tell me about the other one.
So when I went to Sydney to see the expert, he was supposed to have done a tumor review board in 2023, January 2023. They all met to discuss my case. And then I flew up there. Once again, no biopsies, no staining, nothing, because they said there's no evidence of anything, and then hand me images of disease everywhere. So there was supposed to be staining. So I requested my file, and there was 5 fax pages missing from Royal Melbourne, and then there was other things missing from his file, his stuff. And again, no IHC, no staining conducted, and then no tumor review meeting where's that? Where is that?
Did you ask for that? Did
Yes.
you follow up and say, hey,
Yes.
this is missing?
Yes.
What was your response?
Ignoring me. Just nothing. They didn't respond back to
It's a
me.
bit of a pattern of that as well, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah. It's scary.
Mm. So what do you now understand about mucinous? What is?
Mucinous.
What did I call it?
Mucinous.
Mucinous.
Okay, let's start again.
Keep that in. I don't mind. It's kind of funny. Mucinous.
Or mucus. And
Yeah, I can see why.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. So what do you understand about mucinous ILC? And how long do you think they've known about that, what this really was?
I think 2006, maybe 2005 with the night sweats, and I'm sure I had blood work done.
So what is it? So
It's a rare subtype of breast cancer. So given all of my previous scans that were showing malignancy, all signs of malignancy that were never reported throughout the years from 2006 until 2018, when that my last mammogram and ultrasound of both breasts showed a large mass behind the nipple, and then the ultrasound showed vascularity and a large mass behind the nipple. So that was absolutely there. And everything was just being underreported. So then I started reading about, is there a breast cancer that can be mucinous? Because I remember the fragmented lesions in that 2015 biopsy that, again, no IHC staining. And so I started reading, and then I found this mucinous invasive lobular carcinoma is slow growing, hormonally active, and easily missed on imaging. And because it doesn't really create a lump, it's more diffuse. So it'll sort of spread in between the tissue and the fat and stuff and kind of thicken everything instead of giving it like an actual lump or mass. And it spreads to the ovaries, the GI, the retroperitoneum, and the estrogen levels. And I even have blood tests done by this gynecologist who said that I was going into menopause, but then one of the other bloods that tested a different part of the phase of your cycle showed that I was well and truly, like, I still had plenty to go, that I wasn't in menopause at all or even anywhere near perimenopausal. And so the estrogen levels remained high, likely due to tumor secretion. And so I just started reading about all of this stuff, and then all of my bloods were backing it up. And because the signs were present since 2005 with the night sweats, I believe I've had it since then. So I have had metastatic breast cancer running through me for 20 years, unchecked, with no chemo, nothing to stop it. And I'm getting worse and worse, and I have nobody helping me.
So a question that might be on people's minds now is, because obviously people have an image of cancer and how long you've got when you've got cancer. So when they hear, I've had this for 20 years, why do you think you're still here?
Well, this cancer in particular it can be, even though it's invasive, it's kind of a slow burn initially. So it can kind of go, just infiltrate silently, undetected, even though I was having symptoms. So it was being detected. It just wasn't being reported. So that kept happening. And then just your body continues to fight it, which my body did. So I was sweating every night, just sweating profusely for 20 years, fighting this thing. And then I think because it's a low-grade histology, meaning it's poorly aggressive, and it's also hormone-dependent growth, so it slows in menopause, which I was surgically put into. And there's, I guess, no organ crisis yet. So even though it's also a serosal disease, like with the deposits and stuff that it's leaving in my body, so it's not creating masses that completely obstruct. It's just partially obstructing things, and my body's been able to adapt somehow. And also the misdiagnoses have led to partial treatments. Like I had my appendix out, I had the ovary out. So they're doing bare minimum type stuff. And I don't know why, but it's getting progressively worse. There's I can't walk as far, like I can't even walk a block anymore, so it's just, I'm mostly just confined to my apartment. So I
guess that's why we're here now, right? Because it's at a point where there's a sense of desperation, obviously, in this room around getting to an answer, because again, there is that progression that's super obvious to the people like us who are with you every week. Ultimately, we need a diagnosis. Well, thank you everyone for listening. To support Carrie on her search for answers, follow her on Instagram and X, or visit her website where you can view the evidence for yourself. So that's at flyingonbrokenwings.com. We especially invite medical experts to comment on the inconsistencies in the various reports and images that we have shared. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time, where we will share more stories about the hospitals and the doctors and the inconsistencies that are a part of Carrie's ongoing fight before a diagnosis.